Hi guys, I am Leana from Cosmos and Art, and tonight on the Protege Effect, we will be talking and learning more about photo engraving, or more specifically, how to prepare a photo for laser engraving. Please feel free to ask questions at any time during the session, or if you don't want to speak, you can just type your question in the chat and I will try and answer as best as I can. So, if you are ready, let's jump right into it. Just a few key points to consider when you are preparing an image for laser engraving. Four things I have here. You need a good quality photo. I can't emphasize that enough. Your engraving will only be as good as the photo you have to work with. So the better the quality of the photo, the better your engraving will look in the end. No WhatsApp pics. You can ask clients to send you the pics via WhatsApp, but instead of sending it as a photo, they should send it as a document, because this way the quality of the photo is preserved. You really, really need a good quality image for this. Okay, second point. You need an image with good contrast. So someone wearing, for example, all black will not look good when engraved. It's just going to be one big black shape. And the same goes for all white. So you can edit pics like these to get better contrast, but if you can avoid it, choose photos that are not too dark or too light overall, an image with good contrast. Okay, third point. If possible, remove the background. If the background is not necessary for the look you are trying to achieve, simply remove it. A very busy background will distract you from the people in the picture or the subject of your engraving, and it could also make your overall engraving look muddy and dark and full of shadows. So if you don't need the background, simply remove it. Then just a bonus tip, that's the fourth point. Whenever you have to engrave a photo, after editing your photo, just edit out a small detailed piece of the image and engrave that as a test. It could be an eye. If you're doing like a big face, do an eye, or if it's a group of people, just choose one of the faces and engrave that as a kind of a test piece that will show you what your overall engraving is going to look like, and you are not wasting time or material on that. Okay, so let's jump into the first one, which is editing your photo in ImageR. The easiest option for photo engraving is simply just throwing an image into ImageR and engraving whatever comes out. So in your browser, you can just open the ImageR website. There we go. Just see if I can move that out of the way. Okay. So you open your ImageR website, and then you have a simple 6-step process that helps you to prepare any image for laser engraving. So the 6 steps will be: upload your image, crop your image, resize, add text, choose your material, and then download your final image. So I am going to click on upload, choose grayscale for engraving, then just browse to your image and import that image. You'll just have to wait a couple of seconds, hopefully not too long. Okay. Okay, so you're uploading your photo as a grayscale image, and then you need to crop and resize the image as step 2 and step 3. It's important to crop, or not to crop, to resize the image in ImageR to the size that you want it engraved. Because after you have edited your pic, if you resize it, then you are going to lose some of your detail. So, and let's try cropping it. Okay. I think my problem is that the photo is a very high quality, so It's quite big and it's uploading very slowly. Okay, so anything that is unnecessary that I don't want in my engraving, I am going to crop out now. So you crop out any unnecessary detail, then you resize it. Make sure that your DPI is at 300 and then that your image size is exactly the size that you want your engraving to be. Adding text is a step that I almost always skip. I add text and whatever else I need to put in, I do that in CorelDRAW, so I do not do it in ImageR. And then when choosing your material, there's a lot of options in ImageR, so it depends what you want to engrave on, if you want to do wood or a tile or glass or perspex or whatever. So for the examples that I've done, I've chosen CO2 and then used CO2 wood. Okay, so let's go to CorelDRAW, and this was my original image that I've cropped, and then I have removed the image background. I will talk more about removing the background in just a little bit. And then after running it through ImageR, this is what it looks like. So looking at this image, you can see that there is gray detail in there. However, when you zoom in, you can see that the image is quite pixelated. A lot of dots or pixels, especially on the white areas like the face. And these dots are going to engrave. And you don't want that. You will not get a nice clean engraving from this image. So instead of simply running an image through ImageR and engraving it as is, I like to do my own editing first and then run it through ImageR. Okay, so editing your own image. Import your photograph into CorelDRAW. Then crop and resize the image to be as big as you want the engraving to be. Okay, I'm going to show you step by step how I'm going to edit this. Okay, this one, let's see. Let's start with cropping the image. So any unnecessary detail, I'm going to take out. Okay. And then I'm going to resize the image to be 150 millimeters in height. Okay, right. So there is my good quality image. You can see when I zoom in, there's quite a lot of detail, which will help us get a nice engraving. Okay, right. So this one currently is 666 dpi. I don't want it to be that high, so I'm going to go to bitmaps, resample, and change it to 300 dpi. Okay. Now we have an image to work with. Right. Next step, removing the background. So there are quite a few options to remove the background of a photo, whether you are using an app on your phone, a website, photo editing software. There's just a bunch of options out there. So personally, I prefer using Corel's Photo Paint, but you can use any method that works for you. If you want to use Corel, this is how I do it. So I'm going to select my image and then choose Edit Bitmap. This will open up a second window. There it goes. Where you can now edit your image in Corel's Photo Paint. Now go to Image and Cutout Lab. And using the highlighter tool, it's this little orange highlighter up there. Using the highlighter tool, we are going to draw an outline around the parts of the image that we would like to keep. So in this case, it is the man and woman on the photo that we would like to keep. Nib size is 50. You can make it a bit smaller, but this will be fine for now. And then you just roughly draw a line around the parts of the image that you want to keep. Okay. Then fill it using the inside fill tool. So that's the next tool. And you simply click and it will fill the part that you want to keep. Okay. You don't have to be very accurate here because we can do some fine tuning in the next step. So when you've done this, click on preview and it will show you a preview with the background removed. Now you can use the add or remove detail tools where needed. Let me quickly show you how that is going to work. Okay, so the background on the original photo was very light to start off with. So we can use the remove detail tool and you can erase any parts of the background that you don't want to have in your image. The white is not really bothering me. It's not going to do anything. It's too light, so it's not going to change your engraving. So I won't spend too much time on cleaning this up. But also, if you make a mistake and accidentally erase a part of the image that you need, you simply go to the add detail tool and go over those parts again, and then you fix it. So the only part of this background that I'm really worried about is this little gray piece over there next to her arm. I want to remove that. The gray is dark and it is going to show up when you engrave the image later. Okay, so you can take your time on this step and remove as much of the background as you want. Okay, and when you are done adding and removing details, you're going to click on OK, and you now have an image with the background removed. Okay, from there, we are going to go and click on Finish Editing. We'll come back to Photo Paint in a second now. You want to save your changes. Okay. Okay, right. So there we have the image with the background removed. I'm going to make a copy of this image so that when I make a mistake during editing, I can always go back to this first image without having to remove the background again. So just make a copy of your image in case you need to go back. Okay. Sorry, adjusting brightness and contrast. You want as much contrast in your image as possible so that your engraving will be nice and clear. So select your image in CorelDRAW, and then we are going to click on Bitmaps and Image Adjustment Lab. Right. In the Image Adjustment Lab, you can play around with all of these sliders and change the settings, see what works for you, what doesn't. This will differ for every photo that you do. So it's not going to be a one setting for everything. Okay, so we can play around with the brightness. If I go too light, then I'm going to start losing some details on their faces. Contrast will also cause some of the detail to disappear if you make it too high. If you go lower on your contrast, you see that the shadows on their faces are actually becoming darker. So that's also not what you want. Okay, so what I usually do is I set the brightness to about 30 and the contrast to about 25. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so if you look at her face, lot less shadows, but the details are still there. So good contrast, enough brightness to reduce all of those shadows. If you look at his face, there's still a little bit of shadows over there, but we will remove that in a second. Okay, so on this one, I've just changed brightness to 30, contrast to 25, and the saturation I'm going to take all the way down to get a grayscale image. Okay, so click on OK. And now we're going back to Photo Paint. So edit bitmap. And this is where the fun starts. Okay. Select the effect tool. It is this funny one on the toolbar right over there, or you can just press V, that's the shortcut, and it will select the effect tool for you. And then on the drop down menu, you can choose dodge and burn. It will give you a couple of options: custom dodge, burn, dodge highlights, midtones and shadows, as well as burn highlights, midtones and shadows. Now, what does it mean to actually dodge and burn certain areas within your image? What will this do? Dodging an area on your image means that it will lighten it, and burning an area will darken it. We will mostly be using two of the options. Dodging the highlights to make the whites cleaner, and then also burning the shadows to make our details stand out more. Sometimes you can also dodge midtones and shadows if it's a very dark area that you are trying to lighten, but mostly I use those two: dodging highlights and burning shadows. Okay, so let's start with dodging highlights. And then I'm just going to, for the nib shape, I'm going to select this one that's a bit, that's round and feathery. And you can look at the size of the nib. If, okay, that one is on 100, it looks like it will be fine to use. Okay. So then on her face, which is an area that I want to be light and clean, I am going to start dodging the highlights. Can you see the change already when I go over those? Okay, so lighten, yes, lighten up her face. Then also go over to him. So here I'm just going over the entire face, not really worrying about
face. I can see it happening nicely on the guy.
Yeah. So on the left side of his face, you can see there's a lot of light. So I'm not going to dodge the highlights again there. I'm going to go in on his other cheek and do that a couple of times again. So it's going to look funny. It's going to start looking like the faces are glowing, but that's kind of what you want it to look like. Then also on the eyes, I'm going to use a smaller nib for the eyes. Okay. You want the whites of the eyes to be like white. To make those details stand out. Okay, so lighten up their eyes. That was maybe a little bit too much. Okay. And also teeth. Oh, sorry. Teeth. Lighten up those. Okay, and then I'm just going to use quite a big nib, and I'm going to go over the clothing as well. When you are doing this, you don't want to let me show you what I mean. 50, just going to do a smaller one again. Okay, so when you start making everything lighter, same goes for darker. But when you start clicking, do not stop and go over that same spot again, because you'll start to get a kind of stripy effect. So click, hold in your mouse and just go over the whole area. Let go, start again until you have everything as light or as dark as you want it to be. Okay, his jacket is very dark. So on his jacket, I'm going to go over this a few times. Can you see the effect that this tool has? And the more, you can also see the more that you are dodging these highlights, the more the details are starting to stand out. Also, this part of his sleeve there is quite dark, so let's lighten that up as well. Okay. And then lastly, I'll just do, no, the hands are light enough. Okay. Now we're going back to the drop-down menu and we are going to select burn shadows. We want a feathery nib shape again. Otherwise, the lines don't blend as well and you have these harsh lines between where you have darkened the image and where it's still at its normal intensity. Okay, nib size is 100. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so areas where I darken the image will be the hair. And now I want to show you something on his beard specifically. So there's some details in the image that you are not able to see right now. You can see his beard on this side, on this cheek. Let's darken that a little bit. But on this side, there's too much light and you can almost, it almost looks like there's just nothing there. So burning shadows, I'm just going to go over it a couple of times.
Yeah.
And there you can see some more details on his ear as well as his beard there. Okay, so just darken up all the areas that you want. The eye specifically, nice and dark, and then around the mouth and nose as well, just darken those lines. Okay, and then okay, let's do her eyes. You can see after a couple of times, you can already see the difference there between the two eyes. Darkening everything just makes it stand out so much more. And it's not darkening all of the colors here, it's only darkening the shadows. Let's just do a little bit around her earrings. Okay, and then also some details on his jacket. So now you're getting all of these nice details, but without having the completely black jacket, because when you engrave the completely black jacket, you'll just get one big black blob. Okay, and then just going to darken the shadows on their hands as well. Okay, so you can see, maybe I darkened it a little bit too much on his cheek there. So I'm just going to go back. Okay, we've burnt the shadows. So to get that piece to be lighter again, I will have to dodge the shadows. Small nib will be good, so let's change that one to 25. And then I'm just going to go over that. And I was a bit too enthusiastic when burning the shadows there. Okay, so dodging the shadows, and we can remove the dark piece over there. Okay, so you can see that their faces are looking glowy and a bit overly bright, but that is exactly what we want. Okay, so then you can click on Finish Editing. You want to save the changes, yes. And back in CorelDRAW, this is what our image looks like now compared to the one that we started working with. Okay, so finish editing, and now you can click on File, not Import, Export, File, Export, export your image as a JPEG image, and then you are going to run this image through ImageR again, just like we did with the first one. If we look at this one, this is the one that I prepared yesterday. So we have the original image with the background removed, then the edited image with the glowy faces, and then I've put it through ImageR, and this is what we have. So you can see on her face already there's a lot less pixels, so you are going to get a much cleaner engraving. Also, on the side here, you can see the beard that was invisible on, let's just look at this beard on the original photo. You can see it's very light there, but just by burning the shadows, we got all of that detail back in our photo. Okay, so then you can just, as is, take that image there, run it through your laser software and engrave as normal. Okay, so we still have an image with nice and crisp details. It's just a much cleaner image overall. Right, but I'm sure that some of you or most of you have noticed that unfortunately ImageR is no longer completely free, and we only get three image uploads per day. So what happens if I've used up all my ImageR credits and I have a photo to engrave? So if we go back to our edited image, this one, the last image we had before running it through ImageR, we can convert this image to a laser ready image with just a few more additional steps. So, sorry, I just wanted to quickly show you the comparison between the two ImageR photos. So the one on the left is the ImageR photo, or the ImageR image without any editing at all. Whereas this one is after we've done some editing. So again, ImageR is a great tool, but it's not the only tool that I'll use when doing photos. You have to do a bit of fine tuning as well. Okay, then let's go back to our edited image. So this is all the steps that we've gone through, removing the background, adjusting brightness and contrast, desaturating it, and using the dodge and burn tools to create areas of light and shadow. Okay, now let's just make a copy of this image. We can go to bitmaps, then sharpen and unsharp mask. Right. It opens up this dialog box for you, and you can move the slider to where you want it to be. Again, this will differ for every photo that you edit, but my rule of thumb is to have this percentage somewhere between 200 and 300. So zoom in on an area that has quite a bit of detail. I like using the eyes. And then you can start changing these percentages. Let's see. There it is on 200. And there it is on almost 300. So somewhere between 200 and 300 is usually the sweet spot. Let's leave it at about 295 for this one. So you can see most of the details are clear. Also the pattern on her jersey, everything is just nice and crisp. Okay. So click on OK, and we have unsharpened the image. Then final step, just going to make a copy again. Go to bitmaps, mode, and then black and white. Right, for the conversion method, there's a couple of options. You have your normal line art. This is going to be a mess. You can see this is not something that you want to engrave. It's going to look terrible. So looking at the different options you have here, you can use Jarvis or Stucky, or in this case, I used Floyd Steinberg. Okay, so there already you can see all the nice detail you get from the photo there. Okay, so play around with the intensity. If you go less than 50, you'll see that you lose a lot of those extra little pixels. But you also don't want your image to be too clean, because then if you engrave this now, her face is going to be one big white blob with some dark lines on it. Okay, but you also don't want the intensity to be too much, because then you get all of those extra pixels again that we have worked so hard to remove in the first place. So play around and see where exactly you'd like your image to be. Let's stick with 50 here. I think that will be good. Okay. Then you can hit OK. The big thing here is to just get a good balance. If you reduce the intensity too much, you'll lose detail. But if you increase the intensity too much, you'll end up with a very dark, shadowy engraving. So when you are happy, click OK. It looks a little bit different than the image you get from Image R, but this one will be good to engrave. You can also see when I zoom in, there's quite a lot of nice detail over there. And I actually wanted to put a photo of the engraving on here as well, but I forgot about that. I did engrave 2 test pieces, one from the Image R image, and then also one that I edited myself. And I am not quite there yet, but it's a good try at least. So I'll still practice, and maybe I can get to Image R.
Just now I was talking to somebody about the same topic. We're talking on WhatsApp, and they were asking, like, what do I use? And I was saying, well, Corel. And then we're talking exactly about what you're showing here. And what I always say to people is, think like an old dot matrix printer. She said, well, okay, printer. I said, yes, think like that printer. It's just got one color and it's just got to hit dots. And that's what the laser sees. The laser's got one laser beam. So it's got to use dots and clever things to give you the shading and the effects.
Oh, yes, yes.
I think so. That's why I say your photo looks funny, But don't look at it from a point of view of a nice photo. Look at it from the point of view of what does the laser cutter see.
Exactly, yeah. So it's going to look weird, but it will engrave, hopefully. Um, it will engrave very nice. Okay, so that is everything. There's also a couple of other tools. You can go and adjust the tone curve. You can go to contrast. Let me just choose an image here. You can go to effects, adjust, and then you can do contrast enhancement. You can play around with the tone curve. You can play around with the gamma value. So there's a couple of other things that you can do, but I find that those are a little bit more difficult to get right, especially the tone curve one. It can go south very, very quickly. So for example, let's go effects, adjust, tone curve. Maybe I should just do it on the on, oh, where did I now? Okay. Effects, adjust, tone curve. Then you can play around with darkness and light here, but if you move it around too much, you are just going to get a funny looking image. So it is possible there. Her hair is quite dark now. So you're going to lose a lot of detail there. So maybe make it a little bit lighter. Yeah, that could work. Could potentially work. So just playing around with light and dark, but dodging and burning is easier and yeah, not as finicky as playing with this tone curve. Also, if you have lower quality photos, I'm not saying it's impossible to engrave a WhatsApp pic, but it's not going to look as nice as a good quality photograph in the end. Okay, so anybody have any questions for me?
Do you do a lot of this editing with a pen tablet, or do you do it all with mouse?
I do it with the mouse, most of it. I sometimes use the pen tablet, especially if it's like a large group photo and there's lots of finicky bits in the background to remove, then I use my pen and tablet. But most of the time I do it with the mouse. I haven't always had my tablet, so I had when I was learning how to do all of this, I did it with the mouse only.
Alicia was asking, what's your settings for engraving?
Okay, that's going to depend on what you are engraving this image on. If it's wood, I normally do 400 millimeters per second and about 20 to 25% power on my 80 watt.
Yeah, and you can lower and I wouldn't really go higher than that. It's a pretty high setting. I guess really it's a nice deep engrave that.
Yeah, it's a deep engraving. You
So
can go lower. Yeah, I won't go higher as well.
yeah, so if you go lower and you got like a very detailed image, or you got this kind of photo on a small key ring, then you'd want to make the smaller the picture is going to be, the lower your temperature. It's going to give you a little bit more detail, but your engraving
Exactly,
can
yeah.
be lighter. But the bigger you go, I like the bigger engraves because I can actually burn them deep, and I like to see that 3D effect. I don't like the light ones. If I wanted something light, I'll just print it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Scan gap, Carlos asking any specific scan gap or step gap DPI?
Okay. I use Coral Laser. Yeah, I think this the scan or step that you're supposed to use with a 300 dpi image is about 0.085, if I remember correctly. But unfortunately, Coral Laser does not have an option for that. So yeah, I think it's 0.085.
Yeah, so for Coral Laser, as far as what I understood it when I was working with it, that's when I actually really got good with working with photos with Coral Laser, because it
Mm.
doesn't understand photos as nice as some of the other softwares. I mean, like K40 Whisperer, for example, you can basically take a black and white image that's got nice contrast, and you can stick it into K40, and the algorithm
Oh yeah.
splits it out for you. I think AudioWorks does a similar thing. Now,
Mm.
a laser. Obviously, the more you work on it, the better it will look. But they've got some easier things. But with Coral Laser, you have to literally
Yes,
dot matrix.
exactly.
I don't think
Yeah.
Coral Laser understands the different shades of gray. I think he just sees.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I see Alicia asked, can you please explain all the options on the side, sharpness, etc., if you can get to it now? And then Carlos said we can revisit this part. I'm not sure where exactly that was. Alicia, if you can maybe just jump in here and I can try and answer your question.
If you can show me an image or please, they're on the left side. It's one of the last steps before you download.
Oh, okay. Like mirror, invert levels, auto adjustment,
Yes.
those.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I really use those actually. I like to do all my editing in Corel. It's just easier. I think mirror and invert, those ones are easy. Auto adjustment, I've done auto adjustment. I've played around with auto adjustment. What I did in the beginning when image art wasn't as limiting, I would do a couple of adjustments on my photo, put it into image art, see what it looked like over here. And then when zooming in, I saw, okay, maybe the face is too light or too dark or whatever. Go back, edit my photo again, import it into image art again. But now with the limited uploads, that's no longer an option. But you can play around with brightness, contrast. I don't know what gamma adjustment does.
But I think these settings does exactly what you did in Corel. The only difference is when you did it in Corel, you can do it in specific areas, whereas you do it in image R, whatever adjustment you
Oh
do
yes, you do it
applies
to
to
the
the whole,
entire image.
the entire images.
I
Yeah,
also
so
Okay.
do very little. I do very little in actual image aria as well. I try and do all my. Doesn't matter what photo editor. I try and get my contrast right, even if it's in PowerPoint. I get my contrast and brightness and stuff right, and then I bring it into image R. Because the settings, you can't have a set amount of settings. Every single photo, the settings are going to be
exactly.
different. So you write down the settings for this photo. The next photo you try, you're going to say, "Oh, but it doesn't work," because the settings might be inverted. It could be. You literally have to eye it and practice so that you kind of know which button is doing which effect that you want, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'll use Corel then. I only used image R to do the photos, so I'll do the editing rather in Corel then and do just the last bits in image R.
Because if I look at the options on the side, the contrast, brightness, sharpen, that's basically what I used. Just in Corel and not in image R.
Leana, thank you very much for this. This was excellent. This is really, really excellent. I've definitely.
It's a pleasure.
You don't want to know what I went through the last 3 days. The thing I say I've been practicing on that I said I wasn't so happy about that you said looks okay. You don't want to know what I went through to try and get the darker areas lighter.
Oh yeah.
Hours I spent fiddling and playing and trying new things, and now you come along and you're like, yeah, he has a button, click, 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 click.
Yeah.